Taemin wiped the sweat from his forehead as he walked through the crowded marketplace of Harmony Nexus. The space station was huge, floating between 3 different star systems. It was a place where aliens from all over the galaxy came to trade, talk, and sometimes argue. Taemin had been hauling freight for 2 years now, and he knew the station well. The marketplace smelled like a mix of strange spices and engine oil. Vendors shouted in dozens of languages, trying to sell everything from rare minerals to exotic foods. Taemin just wanted to grab some real coffee from Earth and get back to his ship. He had another delivery run in 6 hours. He pushed through a group of tall, blue-skinned merchants and turned a corner too fast. His shoulder hit something hard. Very hard. The cup in his hand flew forward, spilling its contents all over a massive figure standing in front of a weapons stall. Taemin looked up and up and up. The alien before him stood at least 7 feet tall, with dark red skin that looked like it was made of stone. She wore armor that seemed to glow with a faint purple light. Her eyes were golden, with vertical slits like a cat's. "Oh no. I'm so sorry," Taemin said quickly. Reaching for a cloth from his pocket, the alien woman looked down at her armor, now dripping with dark liquid. The cloth she had been holding, something that looked like a ceremonial banner, was ruined. The marketplace around them went quiet. Even the loudest vendors stopped shouting. "You have damaged my honor cloth," the alien said. Her voice was deep and measured. "Do you know what this means, human?" Taemin swallowed hard. "Look, it was an accident. I can pay for a new one or clean it, or—" "I am Vara of the Krell Empire," she said, cutting him off. "Daughter of the War Crochet of Krellian Prime. I have served in 43 campaigns and defeated 117 warriors in single combat." A small crowd was forming now. Aliens of all shapes and sizes pressed closer to watch. Taemin noticed several of them backing away when they heard the word Krell. He had heard of them. Everyone had. The Krell Empire was expanding fast, taking over planets and forcing other species to join them or face destruction. "I'm Taemin. I haul freight. And again, I'm really sorry about your cloth." Vara's golden eyes studied him carefully. She tilted her head to one side like a predator examining prey. "Humans, we know little of your kind. You have only recently joined the galactic community. Tell me, human Taemin who hauls freight, are all of your species so clumsy? So careless?" Taemin felt his face get hot. He wasn't usually the type to get angry, but something about her tone bothered him. "We're careful enough. And we don't go around conquering everyone we meet." The crowd gasped. Several aliens whispered to each other. Vara's eyes narrowed. "You dare to insult the Krell Empire?" "I didn't insult anyone. I just stated a fact." Vara was quiet for a long moment. Then, to Taemin's surprise, she smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who had just found something interesting. "You have courage, at least. Small courage, perhaps, but courage nonetheless." She reached up and removed a metal band from her arm. It was covered in strange symbols. "I, Vara of Krellian Prime, issue a formal challenge of combat to Taemin of the human species. We will fight in the traditional way, in a proper arena, with proper witnesses. If you win, your insult is forgiven and your species gains honor. If I win, which I will, everyone will know that humans are as weak as they appear." Taemin stared at the metal band she was holding out. "You want to fight me? Because I spilled a drink on you? The drink matters little. The insult to my honor cloth matters more. But truly I wish to fight you because I am curious. I want to see what humans are made of. I want to test your species." She pushed the band toward him. "Unless you are a coward?" The crowd was completely silent now. Taemin knew enough about galactic politics to understand what was happening. If he refused, it wouldn't just make him look bad. It would make all humans look bad. The Krell would spread the story far and wide. The humans were cowards who refused honorable combat. But if he accepted, he would probably get destroyed. Vara was huge, covered in muscle, and trained for war. Taemin had taught mixed martial arts back on Earth, sure, but that was years ago. And he had fought humans, not 7-foot-tall alien warriors with skin-like armor. How long do I have? He asked. Vara's smile grew wider. 2 days. That is the traditional time given for preparation. It is more than fair? And the rules? Simple. We fight until one of us submits, falls unconscious, or dies. Though death brings dishonor in a formal duel, so I will try not to kill you. She said it like she was doing him a favor. Taemin looked around at the crowd. He saw a few other humans in the back, watching with worried faces. One of them was Hyjin, a medical officer who worked on the station. She was shaking her head, silently telling him not to do it, but what choice did he have? Fine, Taemin said, taking the metal band. It was heavy and cold in his hand. I accept your challenge, Vara of Krelian Prime. The crowd erupted in noise. Aliens shouted and chattered in their various languages. Some looked excited. Others looked shocked. A few looked at Taemin with something like pity. Vara placed her hand over her chest in what seemed to be a formal gesture. The challenge is witnessed and accepted. We will meet in the central arena in 2 days at the setting of the station's primary lights. Station authorities will oversee the combat. Do not disappoint me, human. I expect you to fight with everything you have. She turned and walked away, her armor clinking with each step. The crowd parted for her like water around a rock dot as soon as she was gone. Hyjin rushed over. Taemin, what were you thinking? The Krell are incredible fighters. They're bred for war from birth. I know, Taemin said, still holding the metal band. But what was I supposed to do? Let her call all humans cowards? Better to be alive and called a coward than dead and called brave, Hyjin said. She grabbed his arm. Come on. We need to talk to the station commander. Maybe we can get this cancelled. But Taemin knew it was too late for that. The challenge had been issued and accepted in front of dozens of witnesses. In galactic society, breaking such a promise would be worse than losing the fight. He had 2 days to prepare for a battle. He had almost no chance of winning. 2 days to figure out how a regular human could possibly defeat a Krell warrior. As they walked back through the marketplace, Taemin couldn't help but think about what his old martial arts instructor used to say. In a fight, size and strength matter. But they're not everything. Strategy matters. Timing matters. And sometimes pure stubbornness matters most of all. He just hoped that would be enough. Vara stood in her quarters aboard the Krell diplomatic vessel, running through her combat forms. Each movement was precise and powerful. Her blade cut through the air with a sound like thunder. This was what she had done every day since. She was 5 years old. The Krell did not raise children the way other species did. When a Krell child turned 5, they were taken from their birth family and placed in a war crèche. There, they learned only one thing: how to fight, how to win, how to bring honor to the Empire through combat. Vara had been one of the best in her crèche. By age 12, she had defeated students twice her size. By 15, she had won her first formal duel against an adult warrior. By 20, she had her own command unit. Now, at 32, she had never lost a single combat challenge. She finished her forms and set down her blade. The human would be easy to defeat. She had seen footage of humans fighting each other. They were weak creatures, soft and small. They had no claws, no natural armor, no redundant organs. A strong hit to the chest could stop their single heart. They were fragile, and yet there was something about this Taemin that interested her. He had not backed down when she challenged him. He had looked afraid, yes, but he had accepted anyway. That showed some courage, at least. Perhaps he would make the fight interesting for a few minutes before she ended it. Vara opened her communication device. Ship's archive, show me all available information on human combat techniques. The screen flickered to life, showing various videos. Humans hitting each other with their fists. Humans grappling on the ground. Humans kicking and throwing each other. It all looked so chaotic, so undisciplined. The Krell way was better, direct, powerful, overwhelming. Why waste time with complicated movements when a single strong strike could end a fight? She watched for a few more minutes, then turned it off. She had seen enough. The human would fall quickly. Across the station, in a small training room, Taemin was watching the same kind of videos. But he wasn't watching humans. He was watching every bit of footage he could find of Krell warriors in combat. "There," said Dongwu, pointing at the screen. "See that?" The Krell warrior charged straight ahead. No feints, no misdirection, just pure forward power. Dongwu was a xenobiologist studying alien life forms at the station's research facility. He was short and wore thick glasses that kept sliding down his nose. When Taemin had asked for help, Dongwu had immediately agreed. "They're all like that," Taemin said, watching the Krell warrior smash through an opponent's defense. Straight-line attacks. Brutal efficiency? "It's their culture," Dongwu explained, pulling up another file on his tablet. "The Krell believe that the most honorable way to fight is directly. They see dodging and trickery as cowardly. They want to prove they're stronger, not cleverer." "Well, I'm definitely not stronger," Taemin said. "What about their biology? Any weaknesses?" Dongwu pushed his glasses up. "That's the problem. They don't really have any. Their bones are 3 times denser than human bones. They have 2 hearts, so stopping one won't necessarily kill them. Their skin is incredibly tough, not quite armor, but close. And their muscle mass is about 40% greater than a human of the same size." "Great. Anything good to tell me?" "Actually, yes." Dongwu pulled up a biological scan. "Their neural response time is slightly slower than humans. Not by much, maybe 50 milliseconds, but it's measurable. All that dense muscle and heavy bone means signals take a tiny bit longer to travel from brain to body. 50 milliseconds? How does that help me?" "It means you might be faster." "Not stronger, but faster. If you can react to her movements before she can adjust to yours, you might have a chance." The door to the training room opened. Haijin walked in, carrying a medical kit and a tablet. "I brought the combat regulations," she said. "And some pain medication for after she breaks your ribs?" "Thanks for the vote of confidence," Taemin said. Haijin sat down and opened her tablet. "The rules are simple. You fight in a raised circular arena with energy barriers around the edges. No weapons except what the station provides in this case. Traditional Krell blade and shield, which you don't have to use if you don't want to. Fight continues until submission, unconsciousness, or death." "What about rules on fighting style?" "None. You can do whatever you want, as long as you don't leave the arena." Taemin thought about this. No rules on style. That was good. That meant he could be unpredictable. Another person entered the room. Sang-ho, a retired military officer from Earth who now ran a small security company on the station. He was in his 60s, with gray hair and a scar across his left cheek. "Heard you got yourself into trouble, kid," Sang-ho said. "Word travels fast. The whole station knows. Half of them are placing bets. The odds aren't in your favor." Sang-ho pulled up a chair and sat down backward on it, resting his arms on the back. "So what's your plan?" "Don't get hit?" "Hit her a lot. Hope she gets tired." "That's not a plan, that's a prayer." Sang-ho looked at the frozen video on the screen, showing the Krell warrior mid-strike. "Let me tell you something about humans, Taemin. We've never been the toughest species on our own planet. Never been the strongest. Never had the sharpest teeth or the thickest skin." "Not helping," Taemin said. "Let me finish. We weren't the strongest, but we survived anyway. You know why? Because we adapted. Because we learned. Because we were too damn stubborn to give up." Sang-ho leaned forward. "On Earth, we fought wolves and bears and big cats. We weren't as strong as them, but we learned their patterns. We made tools. We worked together. We found ways to win that they couldn't predict." "Vara isn't an animal," Taemin said. "No, but she's predictable. All these Krell warriors are. They train the same way, fight the same way, think the same way. You've got thousands of years of human martial arts to draw from. Chinese Kung Fu, Japanese Judo, Korean Taekwondo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Thai boxing, Russian Sambo, and more. The Krell have one way. You have 100 ways." Dongwu nodded enthusiastically. "He's right. Humans developed different fighting systems in every region of Earth. You all competed with each other for thousands of years. constantly improving and adapting. The Krell conquered everyone they met, so they never had real competition. They never had to evolve their techniques. Taemin felt a small spark of hope. So I need to be unpredictable. Use techniques she's never seen before. Exactly, Sang-ho said. And there's one more thing. She's going to underestimate you. She thinks you're weak because you're human. Use that. Let her think she's winning right up until the moment you prove her wrong. Haijin looked worried. Even with all that, she's still twice your size and much stronger. One solid hit could end you. Then I don't get hit, Taemin said simply. For the next 2 days, Taemin barely slept. He trained constantly, running through combinations and techniques. Sang-ho worked with him on footwork and distance management. Dongwoo provided information on Krell physiology, pointing out potential target areas. Haijin made sure he stayed hydrated and didn't injure himself before the fight even started, too. Other humans came to help. Ji-won, an engineer who rigged up a weighted dummy that moved on tracks to simulate a larger opponent, and Young-soo, a pilot who had actually seen the Krell fight before and offered tactical advice. Word of the challenge had spread throughout the station. Taemin couldn't walk anywhere without aliens staring at him. Some looked curious. Some looked amused. Most looked like they were already preparing for his funeral on the morning of the fight. Taemin stood in the shower, letting hot water run over his sore muscles. He thought about what Sang-ho had said. Humans had survived on Earth not because they were the strongest, but because they adapted. They learned. They refused to give up. He could do this. He had to do this, not just for himself, but for what it meant. If he lost badly, the Krell would see all humans as weak. They might even decide Earth was ripe for conquest. But if he could put up a real fight, if he could show them that humans were not easy prey, it might change everything. Tae-min stepped out of the shower and looked at himself in the mirror. He wasn't particularly muscular. He wasn't particularly tall. He was just a regular guy who had made a living hauling cargo across the stars, but he was human. And humans didn't give up. The central arena was packed. Thousands of aliens from dozens of species filled the seats that surrounded the raised circular platform. The noise was incredible voices in hundreds of languages, all talking about the same thing, the human who was foolish enough to challenge a Krell warrior. Taemin stood in a preparation room beneath the arena, trying to steady his breathing. He could hear the crowd through the walls. They didn't sound like they expected him to win. They sounded like they were waiting for a show, for entertainment. You don't have to go through with this, Haijin said again. She had been saying it all morning. We can claim illness or diplomatic issues or... It's too late for that, Taemin said. He was wearing simple clothes, loose pants, and a light shirt that would let him move freely. The station had offered him armor, but he had refused. Armor would slow him down, and speed was the only advantage he might have. Sang-ho put a hand on his shoulder. Remember what we practiced. Distance first, make her chase you. Tire her out. Then, when you see an opening, you take it. And if there's no opening, then you make one, a buzzer sounded. It was time. Taemin walked down a long corridor that led to the arena floor. The sound of the crowd got louder with each step. His heart was pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. He thought about running, about going back to his ship and leaving this station forever. But his feet kept moving forward. The corridor opened onto the arena floor. The crowd's noise hit him like a physical wave. The arena was a perfect circle. About 40 feet across, raised 10 feet above the ground. Around its edges, a shimmering energy barrier hummed with power. Outside the barrier, thousands of alien eyes watched him. In the center of the arena, a station official stood holding 2 sets of equipment, traditional Krell weapons, a blade and shield for each fighter. Across the arena, another corridor opened. Vara emerged. She looked even bigger in the bright lights of the arena. Her red skin seemed to glow. She wore minimal armor. Just like Taemin had expected, the Krell didn't like heavy protection because they thought it showed weakness. Her golden eyes found him immediately, and she smiled that predator's smile again. The crowd's noise changed. They cheered for Vara. They always cheered for the favorite. The station official raised his hands, and the crowd slowly went quiet. This is a formal combat challenge, witnessed and sanctioned under Article 47 of the Galactic Treaty on Personal Honor. Combatants: Vara of the Krell Empire and Taman of Earth. The rules are traditional. Fight until submission, unconsciousness, or death, though death brings dishonor. The use of weapons is optional. The arena boundary must not be crossed. Are both combatants ready? Vara stepped forward and beat her fist against her chest. I am ready. Let this human prove their species has courage, at least. All eyes turned to Taman. He stepped forward, his legs feeling like rubber. I'm ready. The official gestured to the weapons. Choose if you wish. Vara picked up a blade and shield. The blade was about 3 feet long, curved and wicked-looking. The shield was round, made of some kind of metal Taman didn't recognize. Taman looked at the remaining blade and shield. He thought about taking them, about trying to fight Vara's way, but that was exactly what she expected. That was what she had trained for her entire life. I don't need them, he said, the crowd murmured with surprise. Vara's smile faded slightly, replaced with a look of confusion, maybe even insult. You refuse weapons? You face a Krell warrior with nothing but your hands? That's right. Vara's eyes narrowed. This will be even easier than I thought. You have courage, human, but you are a fool. The official backed toward the edge of the arena. When I signal, you may begin. He raised his hand. The crowd went completely silent. Taman could hear his own heartbeat. The official's hand dropped. Begin. Vara charged. She moved faster than Taman expected for someone her size. She covered half the distance between them in 2 seconds, her blade already swinging in a horizontal arc that would have cut him in half. Taman dove to the side, rolling across the arena floor. The blade whistled through the air where his chest had been a moment before. He came up quickly, his eyes locked on Vara. She turned and charged again, not wasting any time. This time she thrust the blade forward like a spear. Taman sidestepped, feeling the air move as the blade passed within inches of his ribs. The crowd was making noise again, but it sounded distant. All of Taman's focus was on Vara, on reading her movements. On staying alive, Vara slashed again, then again, driving him backward toward the energy barrier. Each swing was powerful enough to kill. Taman dodged left, then right, then ducked under a horizontal cut. His back was almost at the barrier now. One more step and he'd be trapped. Vara knew it too. She raised her shield and charged, trying to bash him into the barrier with her sheer mass dot at the last second. Taman dropped to the ground and rolled between her legs, coming up behind her. Vara stumbled, surprised. She had never fought anyone who moved like this before. Taman used the moment to strike. He kicked the back of her knee hard. It was like kicking a tree. Vara didn't fall, but she did stumble forward a step. She spun around, angry now. Fight like a warrior, stop running. But running was exactly what Taman needed to do. He circled her, keeping his distance, forcing her to chase him around the arena. Every few seconds she would charge or swing her blade, and he would dodge or duck or roll away. The crowd was getting restless. This wasn't the fight they expected. They wanted to see combat, not a chase. Vara was getting frustrated too. Stand still, coward. Taman didn't respond. He was watching her carefully, looking for patterns. Every time she swung the blade, she dropped her shield slightly. Every time she charged, she committed fully to the forward momentum. She was powerful, but she wasn't subtle. Just like Sangho had said, predictable. After 2 more minutes of this, Taman noticed something else. Vara was breathing heavier. Not tired, not yet, but the constant chasing was wearing on her. Her charges were slightly slower. Her blade swings were taking a fraction of a second longer to recover from. It was time to change tactics. The next time Vara charged, Taman didn't dodge. He stepped forward, inside her range, too close for the blade to be effective. Vara tried to bash him with her shield, but Taman grabbed the edge of it and pushed down hard, using her own forward momentum against her. Vara stumbled. For the first time in the fight, she lost her balance. It was only for a second, but it was enough. Taman drove his elbow into the side of her head. Right where Dongwu had said the skull was thinnest, Vara roared and swung wildly. The blade caught Taman's shoulder knot, a deep cut, but enough to draw blood. Pain shot through his arm. He backed away quickly, holding his shoulder. The crowd went wild. First blood had been drawn. Vara touched the side of her head where Taemin had struck her. Her hand came away with a small amount of purple blood. She looked at it, then at Taemin with something new in her eyes. Not anger, surprise. "You hit me," she said, like she couldn't quite believe it. "That's the idea," Taemin said through gritted teeth. His shoulder hurt badly, but he couldn't show weakness. Vara's expression changed. The predator smile came back, but it was different now. It looked almost excited. "Good, perhaps this will not be boring after all." She dropped her blade and shield. They clattered on the arena floor. The crowd gasped. Even Taemin was shocked. "What are you doing?" "You fight without weapons. It is only fair that I do the same. Let us see if you are truly skilled or if you simply run well." Vara cracked her knuckles. Each pop sounded like breaking wood. "Now we fight properly." Taemin realized he had made things worse. With weapons, Vara had been powerful but somewhat restricted. Now, with just her hands, she was even more dangerous. Those hands could crush his skull like an egg, but there was no going back now. Vara charged again, but this time without a blade. She threw a punch that could have knocked down a wall. Taemin barely dodged it. The force of the punch created a small gust of wind. He countered with a quick jab to her ribs, but it felt like punching stone. His knuckles screamed in pain. They exchanged blows. Vara's powerful and devastating, Taemin's fast and precise. He aimed for weak points, joints, pressure points, anywhere that might actually hurt her. But every hit he landed barely seemed to affect her, while every hit he took felt like getting struck by a hammer. A straight punch from Vara caught him in the chest. Taemin flew backward, landing hard on the arena floor. The air rushed out of his lungs. His ribs felt like they were on fire. The crowd was roaring now, sensing the end of the fight. Vara walked toward him slowly, confidently. "You fought better than I expected, human, but this is over." Taemin struggled to his feet. His chest hurt with every breath. His shoulder was bleeding. His knuckles were swollen. But he wasn't done. Not yet. As Vara reached for him, preparing to end the fight with one final devastating blow, Taemin did something she didn't expect. Something no Krell warrior would ever do in honorable combat. He dropped low, grabbed her leg, and pulled. For the first time in her life, Vara of Krellian Prime fell to the ground. The crowd's roar changed to shocked silence. A Krell warrior on the ground was something most of them had never seen. Vara herself looked stunned, her golden eyes wide with disbelief. Taemin didn't give her time to recover. He moved on top of her, trying to control her position. This was Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the martial art designed specifically for smaller fighters to defeat larger opponents. On the ground, technique mattered more than strength. On the ground, leverage was everything, but Vara was strong. Incredibly strong. She bucked and twisted, trying to throw him off. Taemin held on, wrapping his legs around her waist, his arms working to control hers. "What is this?" Vara growled. "This is not fighting. This is—" She managed to grab his arm and started to pull. Taemin felt his shoulder joint strain dangerously. If she pulled any harder, she would dislocate it. He had to move, had to adjust. He released his hold and rolled away before she could break his arm. They both scrambled to their feet, breathing hard now. Taemin's ribs screamed with pain every time he inhaled. Vara's armor was scraped and dusty from the ground. "You pulled me down," Vara said. She wasn't angry. She sounded confused. Warriors do not pull opponents to the ground. It is dishonorable. "I'm not a Krell warrior," Taemin said, circling her carefully. "I'm human. We fight to win. But without honor, victory means nothing." "I disagree. Survival means everything." Vara considered this. Around them, the crowd had started making noise again, arguing with each other about what they had just witnessed. Some aliens seemed excited. Others seemed upset that the fight wasn't following traditional rules. Vara charged again, but this time she was more careful. She knew Taemin would try to take her down again. She kept her stance lower, her balance better. When he went for her legs, she was ready. She grabbed him and lifted him off the ground like he weighed nothing. Taemin felt himself flying through the air. He hit the arena floor hard, the impact driving the air from his lungs again. His vision blurred for a moment. He tasted blood in his mouth. Vara stood over him. "You are tough for a human. I have fought warriors who would have stayed down after that. But this must end now." She reached down to grab him. Taemin kicked upward, catching her in the forearm and knocking her hand away. He rolled to the side and got back to his feet. Though his legs felt unsteady, they faced each other again, both breathing heavily now. Taemin's entire body hurt. He didn't know how much longer he could keep going. But Vera was breathing hard too. The constant fighting, the constant movement was wearing on her. Krell warriors were built for strength and endurance, but they usually won fights quickly with overwhelming force. They weren't used to long battles. Tae-Min decided to take a risk. He rushed forward, throwing a combination of punches high, low, middle. None of them would seriously hurt Vara, but that wasn't the point. The point was to make her react, to make her block and move. Vara blocked the punches easily, but she had to focus on them. While she was focused on her upper body, Taemin dropped down and swept her legs. This time, he was ready for her to fall. This time, he was in a better position. They hit the ground together. Taemin immediately wrapped his legs around one of her arms, pulling it straight while he controlled her head with his other arm. It was called an armbar, a fundamental jiu-jitsu submission technique. Vara struggled, trying to pull her arm free. Her strength was incredible. Taemin felt like he was trying to hold down a wild animal. His legs squeezed tighter, his entire body working to control just one of her arms. "Let go!" Vara shouted, pulling harder. Tae-Min gritted his teeth and held on. His muscles were burning. His injuries were screaming. But if he could hyperextend her elbow, if he could make her submit, the fight would be over. Vara roared and did something Taemin didn't think was possible. She lifted him off the ground while he was still wrapped around her arm and slammed him down. Then she did it again. And again, on the third slam, Taemin's grip loosened. Vara yanked her arm free and scrambled away from him. Both fighters got to their feet slowly this time. Taemin's back hurt from being slammed. Vara was flexing her arm, checking for damage. Her elbow was bruised but not broken. "You almost had me," Vara said, and there was respect in her voice now. "No opponent has ever put me in such a position. What kind of fighting is this?" "It's called jiu-jitsu. We developed it on Earth. Earth must be a dangerous place if you needed to create such techniques." Taemin almost laughed, but it hurt too much. "You have no idea." They circled each other again. The crowd was going crazy now. This wasn't the quick, brutal fight they had expected. This was a real battle. Vara threw a punch. Taemin blocked it and countered with a knee strike to her thigh. Vara grabbed him and tried to throw him again, but Taemin wrapped his arms around her neck, holding on. They stumbled around the arena together, locked in a wrestling match. Taemin realized something in that moment. Vara was learning. She was adapting to his techniques. Every time he went for a takedown, she was getting better at defending it. Every submission he attempted, she was learning to counter. The Krell might train only one way, but they weren't stupid. They learned fast. He needed to end this soon, or he would lose. They broke apart again. Taemin faked a punch, and when Vara moved to block it, he shot in low for another takedown. Vara sprawled, defending it well. They grappled, their faces inches apart, both straining with effort. "Why do you fight so hard?" Vara asked through gritted teeth. "You know I'm stronger. You know I will win eventually." "Maybe," Taemin gasped. "But I'm not going to make it easy." "But why?" "What do you gain from this pain?" "I gain everything. I gain respect. Not just for me, but for all humans. I prove we're not weak. I prove we're not easy prey." Vara's eyes widened slightly. "This is not just about honor for you. This is about survival of your species. Now you're getting it." Something changed in Vara's expression. The predator smile was gone. In its place was something like understanding. "I see. You fight not for glory, but for necessity. Like our ancestors did before we conquered our world." She pushed Taemin away, creating distance between them. They stood facing each other, both exhausted now. Taemin could barely raise his arms. Vara was breathing hard, her skin glistening with sweat. "You have earned a warrior's respect," Vara said. "But respect alone does not win battles. Let us finish this properly." They came together one last time? No more circling, no more testing. Just pure combat. Taemin threw everything he had left into his strikes and takedown attempts. Vara met him with equal ferocity. They grappled in the center of the arena. Taemin managed to get behind Vara, his arms wrapping around her neck. It was a rear naked choke, one of the most effective submissions in all of martial arts. If he could lock it in properly, he could cut off the blood flow to her brain. Consciousness would fail in seconds, regardless of how strong she was, but Vara wasn't giving up. She grabbed his arms, trying to pull them away. Her strength was fading, but it was still greater than his. She tucked her chin, preventing him from getting the choke fully locked in. They struggled like this, neither able to gain full advantage. Taemin's arms were burning with fatigue. Vara's breathing was labored. The crowd was on their feet, shouting in dozens of languages. Taemin adjusted his grip slightly, repositioning his forearm against Vara's neck. He locked his hands together and squeezed with everything he had left. This was it. This was his last chance. Vara pulled at his arms, her strength incredible even in exhaustion. But human determination was incredible too. Taemin held on, squeezing, cutting off the blood flow. Not the airway, that would take too long and she could fight through it. But the blood flow, the carotid arteries, that would work. Seconds passed. Vara's struggles became weaker. Her hand started to drop. Then Taemin felt her hand move. Not pulling at his arms anymore. Moving toward the arena floor, toward the submission signal. The crowd held its breath. Vara's hand hovered there, trembling. Her entire worldview hung in the balance. To submit was to admit defeat. To admit that a human, a member of a species she had thought weak, had beaten her, but consciousness was fading. She had maybe 3 seconds left. Before she passed out completely, her hand dropped. She tapped the arena floor 3 times, the signal of submission. Taemin released the choke immediately and rolled away from Vara. He lay on his back on the arena floor, staring up at the lights, trying to remember how to breathe. His entire body hurt. His chest felt like it was wrapped in broken glass. His shoulder was still bleeding. His hands were swollen and bruised, but he had won. The arena was completely silent for a moment, like the entire universe had paused. Then it erupted. Not just noise chaos. Aliens were on their feet, shouting in disbelief. Some were arguing. Some were celebrating. The sound was overwhelming. The station official rushed onto the arena floor. "The combat is concluded. Taemin of Earth is victorious by submission." Taemin managed to sit up. Every movement hurt, but he forced himself to stand. His legs were shaking. Across the arena, Vara was also getting to her feet. She was rubbing her neck where Taemin had choked her. Her golden eyes found his, and for a moment Taemin wasn't sure what she would do. Vara walked toward him. The crowd went quiet again, watching nervously. When she reached Taemin, she placed her fist over her heart in a formal Krell salute. "You are a worthy opponent," she said, her voice hoarse. "I have never been defeated in formal combat. I have never felt my consciousness fading while another held my life in their hands. You could have continued until I passed out, claiming total victory. But you released me the moment I submitted. That is honor." Taemin extended his hand, the human gesture of respect. Vara looked at it, confused for a moment, then reached out and gripped his forearm instead. The Krell way. "You fought well too," Taemin said. "If this had been a test of pure strength, I would have lost in the first minute." "But it was not a test of strength alone," Vara said. "It was a test of skill, of adaptation, of will." She released his arm and addressed the crowd, her voice carrying across the arena. "Let it be known throughout the galaxy humans are not weak. This Taemin has proven that his species possesses the heart of warriors." The crowd's reaction was mixed. Some cheered. Some seemed upset, probably those who had bet against Taemin. But all of them were looking at the human in the arena with new eyes, Hyjin and the others rushed onto the arena floor. Hyjin immediately started examining Taemin's injuries. "You're going to the medical bay right now. You might have broken ribs." "I think I have broken everything," Taemin said. But he was smiling. Sang-ho clapped him on his good shoulder, grinning. "I told you. Stubborn beats strong every time." Dong-woo was practically bouncing with excitement. "Did you see her reaction when you first took her down?" "I recorded everything. This is going to revolutionize our understanding of human combat advantages." As they helped Taemin off the arena floor, Vara called out to him. "Human, we will speak again. I wish to learn more about your fighting techniques." "About your species?" Taemin nodded. "Anytime, Vara of Krelian Prime." 3 days later, Taemin sat in a cafe near the marketplace, his ribs wrapped in medical bandages. Hyjin had been right, 2 cracked ribs along with various bruises, cuts, and a partially dislocated shoulder that had been fixed. But he was alive, and he could move around if he did it carefully. The cafe was busier than usual. Aliens kept walking past, staring at him. Some even approached to ask questions or congratulate him. Apparently, the fight had been broadcast throughout the station and beyond. Taemin had become famous without meaning to. "Enjoying your celebrity status?" asked a familiar voice. Tae-min looked up to see Vera approaching his table. She wasn't wearing her armor today, just simple clothes. She looked almost normal, if a 7-foot-tall alien with red skin could be considered normal. "I'm not sure I like being famous," Taemin admitted. "I just wanted to haul freight in peace." Vara sat down across from him. The chair creaked under her weight. "That life is over, I think. You have become a symbol. A symbol of what?" "Of human potential. Of your species' capability." She leaned forward. "I have spent the past 3 days studying human history. Your planet is fascinating and terrifying in equal measure." "How so?" "Humans have been fighting each other for your entire existence. Thousands of different groups, all developing their own methods of combat. You had entire centuries where your primary activity was warfare. Chinese fighting styles, Japanese martial arts, Korean techniques, European fencing, African wrestling, Brazilian ground fighting, Thai striking arts, the list goes on and on. We're not proud of all that fighting," Taemin said quietly. "Perhaps you should be. Not proud of the death and destruction, but proud of what it created. The Krell conquered every species on our homeworld within 500 years. After that, we had no one to fight but other Krell, and we all fought the same way. We became static. Perfect in our technique, perhaps, but unchanging." She gestured around the station. "Most spacefaring species are like us. They unified their planets early, developed one approach to combat, one way of thinking. But humans? You fought each other for thousands of years, constantly adapting, constantly improving, constantly creating new solutions to old problems." Taemin had never thought about it that way. "So our endless conflicts made us better fighters? Better adapters? Better survivors?" Vara's golden eyes were intense. "When I fought you, I expected to defeat you quickly. I am stronger, more durable, trained since childhood in combat. But you did things I had never seen. You turned my strength against me. You fought without weapons when I expected you to mirror my approach. Every time I adapted to one technique, you switched to another." She paused, then continued. "Tell me honestly, how many different fighting styles do humans have?" Taemin thought about it. "Hundreds, probably. Maybe more. Every region of Earth developed their own, and people are still inventing new ones. We mix techniques too, taking the best parts of different styles and combining them." Vara sat back, looking almost disturbed. "Your species is terrifying. The Krell Empire has conquered 47 worlds. We believed we were the greatest warriors in the galaxy. But now I wonder what would happen if we tried to conquer Earth?" "You'd probably succeed," Taemin said honestly. "You have better technology, more resources, more experience with space combat?" "Perhaps. But would it be worth the cost? Would we truly control Earth, or would we spend the next 1,000 years trying to suppress a population that refuses to be predictable, refuses to fight the way we expect, and never stops adapting? She shook her head. I think Earth might be unconquerable, not because humans are strong, but because you are endlessly creative. A server came to take their orders. Taemin ordered coffee. Vera ordered some kind of Krell beverage. So what happens now? Taemin asked. You return to your empire with news that humans aren't as weak as everyone thought? I will do more than that. I will recommend that the Krell Empire establish formal diplomatic relations with Earth, not as conquerors, but as equals. Perhaps even as allies. She smiled slightly. And I have a personal request. What's that? Teach me. Teach me these human fighting techniques. I want to learn Jiu-Jitsu and this mixed martial arts you mentioned. I want to understand how humans think about combat. Taemin raised his eyebrows. You want me to teach you how to fight? You're already one of the best fighters I've ever seen. I am the best at fighting the Krell way. But there are other ways, better ways perhaps. Ways that adapt to the opponent instead of simply overwhelming them with force? Her expression grew serious. I learned something in our fight, Taemin. I learned that there is always more to learn. That is a lesson worth more than victory. Over the next few weeks, word of the fight spread beyond Harmony Nexus. The footage was shared across dozens of worlds. Aliens who had never heard of humans before now knew their name. The reaction varied. Some species saw humans as dangerous, a potential threat. Others saw them as interesting, worth studying and learning from. A few saw them as potential allies, a species that punched far above their weight class. Earth's status in galactic politics shifted almost overnight. Ambassadors who had been ignored suddenly found their messages answered. Trade negotiations that had been stalled suddenly moved forward. No one wanted to underestimate humans anymore. Taemin went back to hauling freight, though now he couldn't go anywhere without being recognized. Vera stayed on the station, training with him 3 times a week. She was a dedicated student, absorbing techniques with frightening speed. One evening, after a particularly brutal training session, they sat in the same cafe again. Vera was covered in bruises. Taemin had gotten better at actually hurting her, but she looked happier than he had ever seen her. I spoke with my commanders today, she said. They want me to establish a formal exchange program. Krell warriors would come to train with human martial arts instructors, and human fighters would be invited to study Krell combat techniques. That's amazing, Taemin said. A real cultural exchange. More than that, it is an admission that we can learn from you, that you have something valuable to offer, despite being physically weaker. She paused, then asked, How many fighting styles do you know, personally? Me? I studied Taekwondo as a kid, then got really into mixed martial arts in my 20s. I trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for about 5 years and picked up some boxing and Muay Thai. So maybe parts of 5 or 6 styles? Vara looked amazed. 5 or 6. And there are hundreds more? At least. Your species is insane. Wonderfully, beautifully insane.